And we are live. Thanks, Matt. Matt, you want to come on camera?
Sure.
Look at him. He pressed the, he's recorded, so now he's all cheesy. He wants to get on camera. Look at him. You want to say something about sports?
No, not really.
No, not
But
really.
He told me the Dolphins are going to win this year, so.
Yeah, we're definitely going to win the Super Bowl this year. So, all right, cool. Thanks, Matt. You're greatly appreciated. Let's just jump right into it. Always kicking off with the NFL. That's the GOAT. So, the NFL's bringing back the draft-a-thon for the draft last year. They did a virtual draft, and they did it like a draft-a-thon where they were raising money for COVID relief. They raised like $6.6 million throughout the 3 nights of draft night, or throughout the 3 nights of the draft. And yeah, so they're bringing it back. We're still in a pandemic, so they still want to show their support. They still want to get this relief. So yeah, they're bringing back the draft-a-thon. So please tune in April 29th through April 30, through May 1st, the 31st. I don't know if January, February, March, April. No, May 1st, I think the draft ends. So tune in April 29th through May 1st. If you want to donate. If not, just the amount of viewers helps. Giovanni Bernard signed a 1-year deal with Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay signed all of their starters and then had the balls to sign a running back free agent. So now they have Leonard Fournette and Gio Bernard coming out of the backfield. And it's kind of hard to say Tampa Bay is not going to repeat. I think it's the 32nd pick that they have in the draft. They're still going to get great value. So it's hard to say with all the moves that have been going on that Tampa Bay is not going to win the Super Bowl next year. People are still blaming Adam Gase for Sam Darnold. Like, if Sam Darnold didn't play 17 games at USC and have 42 turnovers, I don't get what the... Like, I don't... Look, I think Sam Darnold has a lot of potential, has a lot of talent, but he's been in the league the same amount of time as Baker Mayfield, same amount of time as Lamar Jackson, same amount of time as Josh Allen. And he's the worst one, by far. Like, he just got traded for a couple second-round picks, and he was a top 10 pick at quarterback. He's not worth anything anymore. Carolina got him for peanuts, and he's going to play like he's not worth anything anymore. I don't believe that Sam Darnold to Carolina was Carolina's answer to their problems. It's like, yeah, Adam Gase is a horrible head coach, but you can't blame the coach for the player all the time. The player, like, you have to put the responsibility on the player at some point. And for me, it's like everybody's just shitting on Adam Gase when they really should be like, Sam Darnold, really, this is his last chance to prove himself. Everybody's acting like Sam Darnold was the victim. But in 17 games in college, he had 42 turnovers. So I'm tired of hearing that Sam Darnold is the victim. Sam Darnold has one more chance to prove himself, or else he's a bust. Sam Darnold's not the victim. Sam Darnold was just as much as part of the problem as Adam Gase. Maybe not, but it was a big problem. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Alden Smith signed a 1-year deal with Seattle. They're going to pair him up on the edge with Carlos Dunlap. So on one end, you got Alden Smith. On one end, you got Carlos Dunlap. Maybe in like 2014, that would have been badass, but it's 2021. So I don't know how those players are going to do. They both had their problems with injuries and personal issues. So if they're on the field all 17 games next year, then I think it's going to go well. I don't think it's going to go great. It's going to go well. I think Seattle finally can check pass rush off their list of problems. But like I said, it's up in the air. It's up in the air. Cordero Patterson signed 1-year, $3 million deal with Atlanta. So one of the best return men in the league throughout his entire career. He just signed with Atlanta. That's where Devin Hester used to play. Probably going to retire after this year. Cordero's been in the league for a really long time, and I think he's ready to kind of like get to that final chapter of his career. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe he still has like 6 more years in the tank. But I've been watching him for a long time. I've loved watching him play. But this 1-year, $3 million to Atlanta, I feel like it's kind of like his swan song. Like he's like, all right, after this, I'm gonna just call it a wrap. I hope not. Hope he keeps playing, but that's just kind of what it's looking like. The NFL announced virtual off seasons, so a lot of teams, a lot of players were opting out of like the voluntary in-person workouts. So they basically were just like, you know what? Up until mandatory minicamp, we're just gonna cancel everything. We're gonna make it all virtual, just to relieve some pressure from the pandemic, of course, on these players. So that's pretty good. I'm glad that the NFL Players Association and the NFL were able to make that little compromise. That's pretty good for the players, and I'm always in it for the players. Chris Carson believes that with Rashad Penny, if they're both healthy, they can be like one of the best running back duos in the league. I have to agree. I love Chris Carson. I love Rashad Penny. They both bring great athleticism, great explosiveness to the table. Super fast burst guys. Like they're able to hit that hole really fast. Both tough guys. They're not afraid to hit people. So yeah, if they're both healthy next year, that's definitely going to be Russell Wilson's like crutch. Like, hey man, if I'm having a terrible game, I can just hand the ball off to one of these two monsters, and they're gonna do the game for. They're gonna do the work for me. Yeah, I like it. I like what Seattle's been doing, and if those two players can stay healthy, I definitely like Seattle's chances next year. Julian Edelman has retired. He failed a physical, so the Patriots cut him, but he decided to retire. It's heartbreaking, man, because Julian Edelman's the guy that like. He's a great guy. Like, he's a great player, nothing but heart. You can really tell that he loves the game, and when a player loves the game, it's hard to see them walk away because you know that that's something that they love, and they're just voluntarily just like giving it up. And this time, it wasn't voluntary. I feel like Julian has, especially in recent years, had problems with injuries, problems with his body. Got popped for steroids because he took steroids to get through an injury. So, I mean, Julian is one of the greatest slot receivers I've ever seen in my lifetime. And to see the game kind of ripped away from him it's just tragic. I do genuinely, even though he's a Patriot, I loved watching him play. I wish Julian Edelman the best. I hope that he can get his health together and really just live a long and prosperous life because that's what that man deserves. He has worked his butt off. Bill Belichick said that he's one of the players in his entire coaching career that has made, from day one to retirement, has made the most improvement. So when Bill Belichick says you're one of the most improved guys he's ever coached, you got 3 Super Bowl rings, a Super Bowl MVP, perfect passer rating. Julian Edelman, I think is for sure a Hall of Famer, and I'm sad to see him go, but I'm happy for him because he finally gets to focus on what's important, and that's his health. All right, the NFL Draft, April 29th. I know I said it earlier, but I'm just going to reiterate. The NFL Draft is April 29th. I'm super excited. The NFL Draft, round 1 is honestly, like, I look forward to that all year. I constantly Google, when is the NFL Draft? Like, it's always in my Google search history because I just want to make sure that I never get the date wrong, so I never miss it. So I'm really excited about the 29th. But that leads me to NFL Mock Draft 3.0 drops tomorrow. It's dropping tomorrow. I hit you guys 2 videos last week. I'm going to hit you guys 2 videos going forth every single week. So we're going to have the mock draft 3.0 next week. We're going to have a mock draft every week up until the draft since we're getting super close. But yeah, mock draft coming out tomorrow. Just 1 round. I think as a Dolphins fan, I kind of want to do like a 7-round Dolphins mock draft where I kind of go through the draft network and I, just as the Dolphins, no trades, just pick where they would pick. Try to see if I can get the best picks available. I think that's something super interesting. Bro Schmo does it. He's a great YouTuber. Knows a lot knows way more about football than me. I'm a sports head. He's a football head. So that dude, he's great to watch, great content. So he does kind of like a team mock draft where he goes through every team's picks, 7 rounds, gives a good analysis about what type of player that these guys are going to look for. And I think I kind of want to do that with the Dolphins just because I love the Dolphins. They're my team. So I think that's going to happen more towards the draft. But tomorrow, all 32 teams, 1 round, mock draft, 3.0. I love it. Let's just move on to the NBA. Wearing the Pistons jersey because the Pistons are last in the East. I love it. I love it. For years and years and years, I've been complaining that the Pistons were either the 8th or the 9th or the 10th seed in the East. We would always barely make the playoffs and lose in the first round. Swept, always. Or we wouldn't make the playoffs, but barely not make the playoffs, and then we'd get a terrible lottery pick. I'm Tired of getting terrible lottery picks. I don't want to pick in the 11 through 14 range anymore. I'm tired of losing in the first round. I want the Detroit Pistons to do awful. I genuinely, in my soul, want them to lose. Because I know it's going to pay off when we get a top 3 pick next year. Or in this year's draft. Because this year's draft for the NBA is pretty stacked. So anywhere in the top 5, you're getting great value player. You're getting a real franchise player. And honestly, at 3, if we get the 3rd pick, which is probably where we're going to go, I think we could snag Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. And that right there would be a dream for me. Because Jalen Suggs loves basketball. And we need players who love basketball. Like, the Pistons have always been a horrible destination for free agents. Nobody goes to Detroit. Nobody wants to go to Detroit. But in our history, we've done well when we've had high draft picks and we pick character guys who love the game. And I think with this season, we're kind of going into that, like, that's what we're going to start doing. We picked Isaiah Thomas number 2 overall, and we won championships in the 80s. We picked Jalen Suggs. I'm not saying Jalen Suggs is Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is one of my favorite players of all time. Top 2 players of all time for me is Isaiah Thomas and LeBron James. But when I look at Jalen Suggs, it gives me that same vibe. So yeah, bro, I'm all in on the Pistons losing and being the worst team in the East. Toronto and Washington are both 1 game behind Chicago for the 10th seed. So, of course, the NBA has a play-in this year where the 7th seed plays a 10th seed, 8th seed plays a 9th seed. 1 game, winner of those 2 games gets into the playoffs. Then the top 8 seeds play like regular. So the 10th seed is actually super important this year. Toronto and Washington are 1 game behind Chicago. Toronto's surprising. And Washington is surprising for 2 very different reasons. Toronto is expected to be a top 4 team in the East. They're not even in the top 10. Washington was expected to do horrible, was doing horrible, and now they're trying to turn their season around like if they didn't just do horrible for the first 3 quarters of it. And they're only 1 game out of the play-in. Washington is going in right now. They're trying their hardest to win these games so that they can get into that play-in because they do believe they have the potential. When you have Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal as your backcourt, you have potential to make playoffs. So, yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. So, let's move on. Celtics have now won 5 in a row since falling below 500. I know I've kind of been ripping the Celtics for the past couple weeks, but they've won 5 in a row. They were under 500 for a game, and now they're 4 games above 500. I like the way Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are kind of building off each other, working off each other. That's a great duo. Jason dropped a 53-point game this week, and then last night, Jaylen Brown put up 40 against the Lakers in a dub. So, the Lakers don't have nobody, but anyway, it's a dub. So, I love the Celtics young duo, and I think that they're going to turn around and be a real contender in the playoffs. The Hornets are hanging in. They're hanging in there. They're at 500. I think they're the A seed. They're hanging in there, but they definitely miss LaMelo. Now, LaMelo, it ruled that he would be out for the rest of the year, but there is some optimism that he can come back and really establish himself later in the season, like maybe literally the last 5 games of the regular season, going into that play-in situation. I think they're kind of pushing for him to come back during then. And if that's the case, I love it. I love it. I think the Hornets are better, way better team with LaMelo on the court. LaMelo plays good defense, great playmaking, can shoot. And I think if he can get healthy, the Hornets might actually have a chance of winning some playoff games. But right now, they're just kind of hanging in. Philly and Brooklyn still number 1 and number 2. Brooklyn has a whole bunch of stuff going on in their locker room. Their star players are never on the floor together. They don't have any bench depth. They're constantly arguing on the side. Like, it's just weird to watch Brooklyn. I don't take them too seriously. They have a great roster for their starting 5. LaMarcus Aldridge just retired due to an irregular heartbeat, and I hope that he has a great retirement. It's always good to put your family first, put your health first. He decided it was time. It is time. So, yeah, I'm just happy for LaMarcus. He's finally getting to retire. But the Nets, other than their starting five, maybe their 6th or 7th dude, they don't have real good depth. And that's a problem for them. And especially because they can't all be on the court at the same time for some reason. That's a problem for them. And I just can't take them too seriously. But yeah, they're still the number 2 seed, 1 game behind Philly. Utah and Phoenix are 1 and 2. They're the 1 and 2 seeds. Utah and Phoenix. I really feel like I'm living in the 90s. Utah and Phoenix are the number 1 and 2 seeds in the West, and only separated by a game. Phoenix is going crazy right now with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is the most underrated leader of all time. Chris Paul has literally gone, every franchise Chris Paul has gone into, he's made a winning franchise. And they've always been a losing franchise when he gets there. So I love Chris Paul. I love the way he plays. I love his basketball IQ. And for that reason, I almost wore my Phoenix jersey just for Chris Paul. But it's a Steve Nash jersey, so I don't want to rep Brooklyn too hard. So yeah, went with Pistons. But Utah and Phoenix are great teams. Do I think that they're going to make it past the second round? No, because they're probably going to either have to play the Lakers or the Clippers. And I think both of those teams, when fully healthy, are way better than anything that the West has to offer. So as they're rocking right now, and I have a little bit of faith, but I'm not too comfortable with them being contenders, if that makes sense. The Hawks were the number 1 seed when LeBron was playing in Cleveland. And then the Hawks got swept. So that's all I got to say. The Lakers have gone 6-9 since LeBron rolled his ankle. He's expected to come back within the next 2 weeks. AD is expected to make a comeback within the next week or so. So if they're going 6-9, it's bad. They dropped to the 5th seed. It's pretty bad. But they don't have their 2 best players. And those 2 best players are 2 of the best players in the world, and one of them is the greatest player in the world. So when you miss those guys, of course you're going to have problems. So 6-9 doesn't really scare me. Dropping to the 5th seed doesn't really scare me. They're going to get both those, excuse me, they're going to get both those guys back in like 2 weeks. I'm completely okay with it. The Pelicans, still 2 games behind the 10th seed. I don't know what's going on in New Orleans. New Orleans should be a top 10 West team, but they're not. They're the 11th seed. They're 5 games under 500, I think. They're not doing what everybody expected them to do. I don't know what's the problem in New Orleans. I don't want to find out. I kind of hope that they just turn it around because I love Lonzo. I have a lot of respect for Zion. I love Steven Adams. Their roster is just full of good guys, and I want to see them do well. So I hope they can turn it around, but I have no idea if they're going to be able to. Curry has 9 straight 30-point games. When he's on the court, he's barely keeping Golden State afloat because they're dangling like in the 8 through 10 area, and they're barely at 500. They constantly fluctuate between below 500 or at 500. So with Curry on the floor, 9 straight 30-point games, Chef Curry is cooking. He's reminding everybody why he was one of the best players in the world a couple years ago. He's still one of the best players in the world. I love Steph. But yeah, I don't think Golden State's going to be special this year, but 9 straight 30-point games for Steph Curry, definitely making them feel like they're going to be a playoff lock after being a laughing stock, like a mockery for the first half of the season. So now I feel like Chef's about to cut it up, go back to doing what he was doing, and Golden State probably is going to make a playoff run. Minnesota is 14-42, and Houston is 14-41. They are fighting for the worst record in the league, and they are fighting for the highest overall chance of getting the number 1 pick. I don't know, man. Both of these teams I feel like should be better than what they are. I have no idea what's going on with those teams. Minnesota just got bought by Alex Rodriguez and a partner of his, so I'm glad that the Timberwolves finally sold because their owner was absolutely dreadful. Kicked all of their good players out. Never wanted to actually win. I don't understand how a person can own a team and not want that team to succeed and not do everything in their power to make that team succeed. But the last owner definitely didn't do that. Now we have an owner who has a winner's mentality, and that's good. I'm glad for Minnesota. Even though Anthony Edwards didn't know who Alex Rodriguez was. That's pretty shitty. All right, let's get into the UFC. UFC recap, Fight Night, Vetorri versus Holland. My prelim fights to watch were Joe Selecki and Jim Miller, Mateus Gamrot and Scott Holtzman, Jarvis Danho and Jorgen De Castro. Let's go over that. Joe Selecki definitely got the UD over Jim Miller. For the first 2 rounds, they went top position for Jim Miller, top position for Joe Selecki, domination in the 3rd round from Joe Selecki. So it was a good performance by Joe. Definitely over a tough guy in Jim Miller, who Jim Miller actually made his record-setting 38th octagon appearance in that loss. So a guy with a lot of experience. Joe Selecki kind of just went in there and did everything he had to do to win. And that was kind of impressive to watch from a young guy. Mateus Gamrot absolutely KO'd Scott Holtzman. Mateus Gamrot moved to American Top Team and has really turned his game around. Scott Holtzman got clipped with an uppercut, and after that uppercut, it was the beginning of the end. He got dropped, and then he kind of like did that thing where fighters drop and then shoot in. And most fighters, when they have a guy hurt, they like try to push off the takedown and then like try to swing. Mateus, instead of pushing off, threw another uppercut as Scott was coming in, and that was really the beginning. Like that was the end. That wasn't the beginning of the end. That was the end. Because after that, Mateus just hammered on him for a little bit, and Scott had no more answers. Scott was out. Good stoppage by the referee. Good win by Mateus. Jarvis Danho absolutely one punch slept Jorgen De Castro. Jorgen De Castro came in like a wrecking machine, chin in the air, wild hooks, and Jarvis sat down on a punch, slipped, and hit him with a right straight on the temple, and Jorgen De Castro dropped like a sack of potatoes. No follow-up shots needed. The ref jumped in immediately. Jorgen was unconscious, and that sucks because I went 1-2 in my prelim fight predictions. I really thought Jorgen and Scott were going to win those fights, but I got the Joe Selecki pick right. Congratulations to all those guys who got great wins. That moves me to the main card. Daniel Rodriguez got a unanimous decision over Mike Perry. Mike Perry is no longer a good fighter. Mike Perry should no longer be in the UFC. He has 1 fight left on his contract. I get that the UFC loves Mike Perry because he's a big name, makes them a lot of money, but Mike Perry should not be in the UFC. He fights like a random guy off the street, just signed with the UFC. He fights like he hasn't been a professional fighter for almost 10 years, I think. So, I don't know, man. Mike Perry got a whole lot of personal problems that he got to figure out. He tweeted after the fight that he doesn't know what's going on, and he's got 1 more fight left on his contract, but he's got to do better. Obviously, you have to do better. You fucking suck. Like, dog, I love Mike Perry. I love Mike Perry. I loved watching him fight. Because when I started watching the UFC was 2016. He blew up in 2017. So I loved watching him fight for so long, and now every time I see his name, I kind of get this like pit in my stomach because I know that even though I picked him to win last week, it was just like I needed to pick him because if I didn't pick him, I'd be heartbroken. And now I'm even more heartbroken because I've realized that he just can't be in the UFC, man. Like it sucks. It sucks when you see one of your favorite like fighters and personalities just rapid decline. And yeah. But that was a great win by Daniel Rodriguez. Pieced him up for 15 minutes. Mike Perry never got anything off. Daniel Rodriguez was in and out of range, picking him with shots, stunning him, and Daniel Rodriguez looked like a fucking world beater. And I loved it. I loved watching it. Congratulations, Daniel Rodriguez. Mackenzie Dern submits Nina Nunes by armbar with 2 seconds left in the first round. I mean, you can tell Nina did not want to tap, but that arm was being bent backwards. Like, Mackenzie was going to take that arm with her. And Nina it was either break your elbow and lose anyway or just tap. Take the loss. Get back in the gym as fast as possible. Figure it out. It was your first fight back since you gave birth. Shit happens. I still have all the faith in the world in Nina Nunes. But Mackenzie Dern showed why she belongs in that upper echelon of the division. I absolutely love Mackenzie Dern. She is tough. She is shredded. Like, I didn't know that she was shredded. Because when I started watching her fight, she looked regular. She looked like a regular person. Like a regular person. I feel like they're like, you can literally walk up to her, have a cool conversation, dap her up, hug her a little bit, call it a day. But Mackenzie Dern literally came into that Saturday shredded to the gills. I have never seen a transformation like that that's natural, especially over the course of a couple fights. I guess she got her nutrition under wraps. She got everything she needs under wraps because she looked amazing in that 4 minutes and 58 seconds. And yeah, I really do believe she deserves to be in that upper tier fighter in that division. Julian Marquez submits Sam Alvey by like a weird kind of rear naked choke where he didn't have any hooks in. He kind of just like had the choke and just yanked on it, and Sam Alvey just completely went to sleep. He was like, well, I'm not gonna tap now, and then went to sleep. Sam Alvey's a tough dude, but Julian Marquez got the better of him in every situation, and finally was able to choke him out. I love the up and up that Julian Marquez is on. He's a great guy and an even better fighter. I love watching him fight. I'm always gonna tune in for Julian Marquez. I hope you do too. Arnold Allen with a solid UD over Sadiq Youssef. This was kind of a hard one because to me it looked like they were going back and forth. But then when you really like sit down and analyze the fight, I feel like Allen got the better of all the situations, all the real like good necessary scrambles. Allen was always applying pressure. Allen was always on the outside keeping distance. It was a great slugfest, don't get me wrong. But I'd have to say Allen technically was more proficient in that fight. So I'm on the Allen train from here on out, man. I love Sadiq Youssef, but I picked Arnold to win. He won, and I'm going to keep picking Arnold to win because he's undefeated in the UFC with nothing but great performances. Marvin Vettori, unanimous decision over Kevin Holland. He really destroyed Kevin Holland. Like, it was pretty bad. Like, he dominated Kevin Holland for 5 rounds. Like, Kevin Holland against Darren Brunson got offense in. He never got shit in versus Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori shut that shit down fast. And then he called out champ Izzy. That was his last loss. Do I think he deserves it? No. Especially with what we're about to talk about, which is the upcoming UFC Fight Night, Whittaker versus Gastelum. Let's jump in it. Prelim fights to watch. Bartosz Fabinski versus Gerald Meerschaert. I'm going to go Fabinski. Got heavy hands, solid grappler. Meerschaert's kind of on a decline. Got knocked out by Hamza in like 20 seconds. So this fight could go either way. It's kind of like a pick'em fight for me. But I'm going to have to go Fabinski. Then we got Jessica Penne versus Lupita Godinez. Jessica Penne was on The Ultimate Fighter, the season where they introduced the strawweight division. Jessica Penne is respected across all aspects, but Jessica Penne hasn't fought in a while. And Lupita's kind of a beast. So I'm going to just have to go Lupita based on, I don't know if Jessica Penne has it anymore, man, to be completely honest. And yeah, I think this new guard of fighters kind of taking over those old one-dimensional fighters, which Jessica Penne was kind of one of those fighters. I respect her, but she's kind of one of those like older one-dimensional fighters who have a real specialty, and they're not really improving in leaps and bounds where they need to be everywhere else. So I'm gonna go Lupita. Then we got Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espino. I'm gonna go Juan Espino. We talked about him like, I don't even remember. We talked about him not too long ago, and Juan Espino is a monster. That dude can choke out anybody. Submissions on point. And I know Alexander Romanov has heavy hands, and he can knock anybody out with one punch. But if Juan Espino can get him to the ground, which I think he will within the first 30 seconds of the fight, I think Juan has all the chance in the world to win that fight in the first round. So yeah, I'm going to go Juan Espino. In the main card, to kick off, we got Luis Pena versus Alexander Munoz. Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross, love that dude. He's going to go in there. He's going to put it on you on the ground. He's going to put it on you on the feet. He's going to do everything he can to stop you. And I love that about him. I'm going to have to just go Luis Pena. Then we got Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Jacob Malkoun. Abdul got heavy hands, real strong dude. Literally looks like he could rip the head off a bear. So I've seen him fight, and I've seen people go to sleep at the same time, which is, so I'm gonna go Abdul. Abdul every day of the week. I think he wins this fight 10 out of 10 times. Andrei Arlovsky versus Chase Sherman. Andrei Arlovsky, slight betting favorite. I like Chase. I'm going to have to go Arlovski just because if this fight doesn't end in the first 5 minutes, Arlovski has the experience to kind of keep it on the outside, grapple when he has to. He's really like trying to still make improvements. Chin is not what it used to be, so he got dominated by Tom Aspinall, and now he's back in there real fast. So I'm going to have to go Arlovski. I feel like he still thinks he has something to prove, and he can still be better, and he can still be a better fighter. So I'm going to just have to go Arlovski, to be completely honest. Then we got Jeremy Stephens versus Drakkar Klose. This was a tough one because Jeremy Stephens is one of the hardest hitting 145ers in the world. That dude likes to hit people in the face hard. And Drakkar Klose likes to do the same thing. But the difference is that Drakkar Klose is kind of like what Jeremy Stephens was when Jeremy Stephens was in his prime. Jeremy Stephens is no longer in his prime. Still a great fighter, but Jeremy Stephens from 4 years ago could absolutely whoop on Jeremy Stephens from right now. And when I look at Drakkar Klose, I think he's got the athleticism, he's got the explosiveness that Jeremy Stephens doesn't have anymore. And when two guys both have kind of the same skill set, and one of them's more athletic, I'm always going to lean more towards the athletic dude, just because that athleticism and explosiveness needs to power. And when two guys want to slug it out, power is always the best thing to have. So I'm going to go Drakkar Klose. Then finally, we got the main event, which is what I was talking about earlier. I don't think Marvin Vetorri gets a title shot because I'm picking Robert Whittaker over Kelvin Gastelum. Now, granted, if Kelvin can pull off this win, then we have a whole bunch of fights to make at 185. But I don't think anybody except Robert Whittaker, if he gets this dub, has done enough to get a title shot versus Israel Adesanya. So yeah, I'm going to go Robert Whittaker. I would love to see that rematch. I think Robert Whittaker is younger than Izzy. Like, Robert Whittaker was 2 years younger than Izzy when they fought. He was 28 years old when they fought in 2019. So Robert Whittaker's just been on a tear since that loss. He's looked amazing. He's been able to outstrike all of the best strikers in the division. He out-wrestled Yoel Romero in both of their fights. Like, this guy is a championship fighter. Like, people forget Robert Whittaker was the undisputed middleweight champ. I don't care if he never beat the champ, but when the champ vacates and you're the interim champ, you get promoted. You're the undisputed champ. And he defended. Not really because Yoel missed weight, but he won a fight that was supposed to be a title defense. So, yeah, I love Robert Whittaker. I think he's going to go out there and beat Kelvin Gastelum. I do think Kelvin Gastelum has all the tools in the world to beat anybody at 185, but I don't know, man. I can't get behind Kelvin making a strong run at the title because he's been up and down his whole career. Like, he's a great fighter, but I don't know if he's able to mentally get over the hump. And that just leads me to my thank yous. Thank you to the Raw DJs. Mark is not here because, I'm filming on a Friday morning. Like, dude's busy, got work. Like, I completely understand. My filming schedule is kind of hectic, so when he can be here, he's always down to help. But when he's not here, life moves on, He's a great dude. Love Mark. Love Carlos. Love the Raw DJs. Always going to shout them out. Always going to show mad love. Last thank you is to Buddy. Buddy's the bestest boy in the whole wide world. He's my dog, and I love him. So if you got a problem with that, you come see me. Check me outside. How about that? Nah, I'm kidding. But yeah, that wraps up this episode. I'm going to try to see if my remote works because you all know the infamous remote. It works when it wants. It works sometimes, but it doesn't always work. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to dance out. I'm going to woo. I'm going to click this button, and then you low-key might see me walk up and click that button over there. So we'll see how this goes right now. Woo! I don't know. See how this works. Yep.